You're listening to the Multifamily Mentor Show.
My name is Terrence Doyle.
And I'm Chris Lopez. You probably know us from the BiggerPockets Real Estate Ride Along Show. Well, now we're talking everything multifamily. We bring in top industry experts from around the country to come join us in our Denver studio for an in-depth, in-person conversation.
We're going to be diving deep into deals, underwriting, raising capital, and everything in between. Join the conversation.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another Tribe of Multifamily Mentors show here at BiggerPockets. Chris Lopez here, and we have a phenomenal guest today who is a specialist at underwriting and able to make things happen at a very young age. But my co-host is Terrence Doyle. Terrence, how are you doing today?
Super excited about today's show. The more I get to know Rob, the more impressed I am with him. So I am really excited. I think the audience is going to love what we have for them today.
Yeah. So we are talking with Rob Beardsley here, who is the founder and managing partner at Lone Star Capital. He started investing when you were 21, I believe. And he's also the author of a phenomenal book, The Definitive Guide to Underwriting Multifamily Acquisitions, with over $100 million in assets right now.
Yep.
So for someone who's 24 years old, man, you've just had a phenomenal last 3 or 4 years. So, man, we're excited to talk to you.
Yeah, for those of you that are listening, you're like, should I continue to listen to this show or go click on something else? Let me just say he's raised $20 million in equity. He's 24 years old. He started doing this in college, and he has a phenomenal story. I think anyone looking to get into multifamily syndication, anyone looking to learn how to raise capital when you don't come from money and don't have a track record or any experience, this is going to be a phenomenal show. We're going to have a lot of specific nuances, and there's going to be a lot of tangible application to take away. So I highly recommend staying right here and listening to the whole episode.
Agreed.
So, Rob, my first question for you is, we talked, and you've talked on other shows about, you grew up in a real estate family. Your dad was a residential broker in the San Francisco area. So you grew up seeing and knowing real estate, but residential real estate. So how did you get into multifamily when all you saw was single family deals getting done?
So it's really a funny situation because I was so close to real estate, but yet so far to what I actually wanted to be involved with. I mean, and that was at a time where I didn't really know what I wanted to be involved in, but I did, like you said, have the benefit of the experience of watching both of my parents work in their brokerage business, and it didn't matter how much they worked and how much money they made. They were always stressed out, always super busy, and it was a very transactional business. And so there wasn't anything, no real wealth was being built or assets being accumulated. And so, later in college, as I really got the investing bug and wanted to read everything, with Howard Marks, Warren Buffett, and wanted to understand how, the stock market worked, how real estate investing worked, it allowed me to circle back to real estate again, but in a different angle, and that different angle just so happened to be multifamily, which is in parallel to single family.
So you started out not just focused on real estate, but just investing in general. It sounds like you mentioned Buffett. So you kind of just say, how can I start investing? Like, what was your filter process? Why did you go real estate and not, equities?
Yeah. So the story is, I grew up in Silicon Valley, and growing up in Silicon Valley, you see so much opportunity and wealth, specifically in technology. And you see the startups, you see young people make it big. They start a company.
Overnight almost, right? I mean, wealth is getting built like in a blink of an eye out there.
So that's what's hot. That's what's sexy, right? And my parents, meanwhile, are struggling in real estate, and they're telling me, don't do the boring old real estate thing. Look at all the tech people around you. That's what you want to do. That's why we're here. Is you're going to be a successful tech guy one day. So when I went to school to study computer science, that was my angle. So I had the confidence. I knew that I was going to be successful somehow and that I was going to make money. But the question that was burning in my mind was, okay, how do I invest that money that I make, right? Let's say I do cash out big in a startup.
So do they have like the Social Network playing like on repeat? Like when you're growing up, like, Rob, this is Zuckerberg. Like, this is what we want you to be. It sounds like they were very intentional about that. Like, this is where we want you to focus.
Yeah, I mean, and you don't even need the movies, because you can, the kids at school just look at their parents. They went to Stanford, they went to Harvard, they did this company, they did that company. Oh, they sold to Google. It
was all around you.
It's all around you.
Wow, cool. Okay, so you were studying investing. You go to college. you're in Pittsburgh, Carnegie Mellon.
Mm-hmm.
So engineering, computer science school, really hard to get into. And how do you get from there to multifamily?
Yeah, so as I said, all in my free time I became obsessed. I just love investing. I love numbers, love formulas and everything. So applying that analytical brain to finance and real estate allowed me to just drill in and dive in and want to consume everything. And one of the places that it started with was BiggerPockets.
Wow, cool.
It was Grant Cardone, BiggerPockets, Joe Fairless, and then from there it was just that's the opening, and then let me just drive through that and learn everything I can. And so I'll download every book, I'll download every article, and that's how it started. And
so did you read Joe Fairless's best ever book on syndication?
Mm-hmm.
Apartment syndication?
Oh yeah,
me too.
Oh,
yeah, I think that may be, in my opinion, the best apartment syndication book to read. It's a really easy read. It goes A to Z on how to do everything from underwriting, raising capital to the management. I think I've emailed him like, look, this book I thought was phenomenal. So that's really cool. So you read that book?
Yeah, and that's that book wasn't out back when I was learning all this stuff, but I was consuming stuff that was similar, and that I agree with you. That book is the most holistic. I mean, like we talked before the show, there are no secrets,
right,
and everything is out there to learn.
Yeah.
Right. You don't have to necessarily spend years of your life getting a degree or learning something at a company. I mean, this stuff can be learned in a book in a weekend. So that was, and that's a fortunate approach, in today's time that we live in with internet. I can just Google everything, get the answer to everything. So coupling that education, you also recognize the need for networking. And so very early on, I started going to local real estate meetups in Pittsburgh, and then also started hosting a real estate meetup and kind of wanting to do the things that you're supposed to do to build the network. And building a network is great. You learn a lot faster from people, and then also relationships open the door to deals, to capital, to everything. So I started going to conferences and, eventually meeting my business partner, like we talked about, at a conference.
At a multifamily conference?
Mm-hmm.
What conference was it?
It was the best ever conference.
The best, and was that in Colorado? Because he does one in the mountains here, but I'm sure he does them all over. Where was
this? Was back in 2018, and so it was in Denver.
It was in Denver?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So you came back to the site of how it all started.
That's right. I'm back.
So you're at this best ever conference. You meet your business partner, and then how do you guys get to your first deal?
So we meet, and the reason we had the connection was we were both looking at multifamily workforce housing in Texas, and even specifically Houston. I had made a couple trips down to Houston to tour properties, meet brokers, and just want to learn the market. And he was doing the same thing, and we complemented each other's skill sets. I was, got the numbers down. I could underwrite the deals. I could analyze them. He had a little bit more experience, and he had a little more deal flow because he already knew all the brokers and they trusted him and they were sending him deals. So we kind of put that together. We put the deal flow and the underwriting together, and then we were able to just start looking at a bunch of stuff, submitting offers. And through that process of obviously chasing deals, losing out on bids, we eventually were able to find our first opportunity and lock it down.
So did the deal come first, or like the official partnership? Because partnerships, I love them, I hate them. There's great ones and there's bad ones as well. So talk about how you knew he was the right partner for you guys, and hey, cool, we can work together. It's the right fit, and plus we work together. Hey, we can do we can 10x our business.
You bring up a really good point, because meeting your business partner at a conference, that's such bad advice.
Right.
Yeah.
That's not what you should be trying to do. So it's good that you brought that up, because that is not a good thing, and we're very fortunate that it did work out, and it was serendipitous, and that we just match well. But at the same time, we went slow, and I think that's how you want to do partnerships, is you want to date and get to know each other. And the thing about real estate, as you guys know, is it's a very deal-driven business, very partnership-driven business. But it's fine for people to do deals and partnerships on a one-off basis. So you can do a deal one time, get to know someone, see how they work, and then make a decision from there. You don't have to all of a sudden say, okay, now we're doing everything together. People can kind of date around in real estate. That's appropriate. So we didn't just instantly say, all right, let's start our business. Let's go. We didn't make a name. We didn't have anything. We were just essentially working together. And it was just a very natural evolution of really the progress of our business and of our knowledge was driving the partnership, not the other way around. And so, like you said, we actually had that deal before we formally really had a full partnership set up.
And so going to a conference, I mean, there's 1,000+ people at conferences. How did you guys actually sync up there? What was the tactical stuff? Were you looking for a partner? Were you looking for someone else to complement your skills? So what was the tactical thing on how you met your partner to go out here and be able to start forming this relationship?
I wasn't actually looking for a partner at all. I don't know what I was looking for, right? I'm just at a conference, soaking it up. First time at a conference, really, for a big one. And this conference, I was able to drag my dad out to the conference with me, and which is a big help. Obviously, having someone who's a little bit older and has some more experience can make some intros. And my dad said, "Oh, well, you should meet Kent because he's looking at a deal in Houston." And I get the email, and he's looking, and I was like, "I know that deal. I'm looking at that deal too."
Okay, so that was a commonality right there.
But this is competition. Why do I want to talk to him
You
about
already
this?
got the OM for that deal,
Right?
and seen it, and you were looking at that and thinking about making an offer.
Sure.
And then he's telling your dad about this deal he wants to make an offer on.
Right.
Wow.
And so I'm thinking, oh, whatever. I guess I'll meet this guy, but he's he's bidding against me on the deal essentially. And so
guy's the enemy.
Right.
Yeah.
So
that's how I'd look at it.
So that's kind of how I initially approached it. Hey, what's up? I'll help you. We can kind of share notes. We can see how you're looking at the deal, see how I'm looking at the deal, and that's how it started. And then just moving forward, it started with just, all right, well, hey, since we're just often looking at the same deals and bidding against each other, essentially, why don't we do this together?
Wow. And who did that come from, you or him?
I want to say it was me. I think I was maybe a little more forward because,
yeah, it's why have a competitor if you guys can be friends and get more done together?
Yeah, exactly.
What about, because I think when we were talking last night, you described both you and your partner as more on the introverted side, which is, not always the best skill set at conferences. So you did something right. So would you consider yourself more introverted than extroverted?
Absolutely. I think I might have mentioned this to you guys yesterday. I'm definitely an introvert by, personality, but I'm a learned extrovert because I recognize that this is what is beneficial. This is how you're going to get things done in life. And so I've, learned the skills necessary to actually conduct myself at a conference.
Can you give some tips on this? Because this is, I'm right on the borderline. I can go either way, but I'm definitely not
the key phrase here is learned extrovert.
Yes.
I mean, I think that is so powerful because we're all born with natural skill sets. And the fact that you were able to recognize that to be really good at your role, which I think is sales and marketing in your partnership, is you had to be an extrovert. And so even though it wasn't your natural default setting, a learned extrovert, a learned anything, if it's not your default, is so powerful, and so I'd love to, unpack that for us. How did you, what are the 2 or 3 things I have to do so that I can step outside my comfort zone and do something that may not be comfortable to me?
To your point about anything that's learned, there is an element of the enemy of the great is the good. If you're kind of naturally an extrovert, well, then you might not work at it and actually want to make yourself great at it.
Right.
So me, I kind of, I remember my very first recess as a kid. I just sat there and I was like, when is this
You
thing
remember
over?
that?
I remember it because
you're that much of an introvert then, huh?
I remember it. I was just sitting there waiting for a class to go back, and this girl came up to me. She's like, "Why aren't you playing?" I don't want to play. I want to go back to class. I don't want to hang out.
Were you doing math or something? I could see you doing math or programming a computer.
Of course,
doing
of course.
He was underwriting a deal back. You were underwriting. You were in 3rd grade, right?
So
you're looking at property values around the school.
So because I kind of came from an awkward and an introvert place, it forced me to approach being an extrovert and sales and marketing with intention and saying, okay, I'm going to make myself actively great, not just naturally great. And so I think it's also a whole lot easier to do that when your back's against the wall and your business depends on it and you just have to. Right? If I don't go up to this person and introduce myself at this conference, that's my business.
But what did you do to make yourself feel comfortable and confident to learn that? Because it is much easier said than done, especially for introverted people, to go out there and do that. It's very easy to go to the conference and you sit there, but the best part of the conference is the networking. It's not the learning. You can Google that. The best part is the networking. How did you overcome that, or how did you teach yourself that?
I think a really this isn't as much of a skill, but really a technique, is just momentum. Get the first one done, the first introduction, and then that's just going to make the next one easier and easier. And honestly, even just saying this is maybe a little, I don't want to say embarrassing, because if you're talking to someone who just has no issue with this, they just go to the conference, they bump around, they talk to everybody. If they're listening to me saying, like, just talk to that first person, like, they're going to think this is so silly, but this is really true. You want to minimize the time before your first interaction and then minimize time in between interaction. So the second you get to the conference, talk to the first person you see, and then once you say bye, talk to the next person immediately after.
What's your pickup line?
What's your pickup? I mean, I think it's pretty easy. I mean, with maybe girls, you have to be a little creative, but in a conference,
I'm talking about from a business standpoint.
No, I know. And that's my point. My point is there's no reason to be creative. You just show up. Hey, what's up? My name is Rob, and what do you do? Or I think that's just a really straightforward way. I mean, at the end of the day, people at the conference want to meet you. So you just took the initiative to make it that much easier to meeting.
And I think that's a great point to talk about is a lot of times, hey, if you're sitting there worried about this, you're right. People are there for the same reason you are. They want to learn and network. So, don't be shy. Hey, if you're sitting next to Terrence over here, Terrence is just likely one to talk to you as you or him. So be the first guy to reach out and shake hands and start the conversation.
Yeah, I like your technique. I mean, I think that's very practical. Like, when you show up at a place you're uncomfortable, go talk to the first person you see, get it out of the way, and then you're going to have more confidence to go talk to other people. Just get the first one out of the way. Yep. Even if it's a total disaster, you're going to feel much more confident going to the next person. So let's fast forward. So you're talking to your current partner. His name is? Kent. So you and Kent are talking. You're realizing that it makes more sense to team up, and then you guys end up making an offer on that property. Or walk me through you guys partnering up and then getting to your first deal and what it was like to raise the money. Tell us that story.
So we find the first deal, we put it under contract. We don't exactly know what the partnership's going to look like, but we understand that, for this first deal at least, we're going to have some sort of...
And who put up the earnest money? Because you guys are working on big deals. I mean, how big was your first deal?
It was $15 million.
$15 million. So the earnest money was what? 150, 300 grand?
Yep. It was initially 150, then another 150.
Yeah. So so you guys are doing that. You guys make the offer, and then who's putting up, you guys are starting out. You're 21 years old.
We borrowed it from a few investors.
Okay. So walk me through that. So people listening, they're like, man, I want to be the next Rob Beardsley. I'm a freshman in college. I don't even want to be in college. I don't know what I'm doing here. I really love real estate. How did you get the 150?
It starts with, especially when you're talking about like a freshman in college, it starts with education, being so well enough educated and having some level of experience where you can actually speak intelligently about the opportunity and essentially, sell the deal and sell the and not just the deal, but also the partnership. And this is where I think a huge thing that people with less experience, like where I was, need to recognize the fact is you need to bolster your credibility through other people on your team. Mm-hmm. And that's everybody. That's your business partner, your property management company, your investors. Everyone who you bring around the deal needs to have, add credibility to the situation. And at the end of the day, if that means you bring on partners and you end up with just 10% of a larger deal than 0% or 100% of a much smaller deal, right? I'll take that smaller slice of the bigger pie any day, because it's going to cascade and grow to something much bigger, faster.
So I love that. So pause right there. So, you were 21 years old. You recognized that this was a really good deal. And so you brought investors on. You were able to sell them on the opportunity, sell them on the market. Was this Houston?
Mm-hmm.
So you sell them on the market, on the opportunity that the deal's good, the market's right, the partnership is strong, and you were probably giving away pieces of the upside, right? To say, listen, we don't have the money, but we know how to work. We're going to work hard. We're going to execute. You can count on us. Put up this money that we don't have, the capital, and in exchange, you're going to get a disproportionate return for taking a chance on putting up what I would say is the riskiest capital.
That's right.
Is that right?
That's exactly right.
And it was the understanding that I may not make as much money, but I'm going to learn a ton, and I'm going to be able to use this for my track record and have a ton of experience, right? And I think that's something that people really need to hear, is that you weren't concerned about, man, I need to have 80% or 90% of this deal or whatever. It's like, even if I give the entire deal away and make $10, the value that I'm going to get is from the experience and the relationships and being able to have this on my resume. And that was, I think, what you did that to me stands out that other people can really take and apply.
That's right. And I think the thing I kept telling myself as I was going from potential partner and an investor who I had to give extra upside to make the deal happen, sure, that may hurt, but I just kept telling myself, hey, even if you get this deal done for free, you're getting paid to learn.
Right.
This is a home run. I was just telling myself, this is awesome. This is what you want to do.
Right.
And that's the right attitude, because I mean, you were, what year in college were you at when this happened? This first deal?
I think I was a sophomore.
Okay, so I mean, you're going to school for 4 years, maybe 5 years, to get a degree where you are spending money with no income coming in, but you got the right attitude, I think, of, hey, I'm doing this deal. Hopefully I make money, but even if I break even or have to put some money in there, it's the education. It is worth so much. And I think a lot of people lose that aspect. Hey, they'll go to college for 4 years and rack up $100,000 in debt, make $0, but then they hung up on, hey, I broke even on this deal, but the education, the experience, the network, the leverage it gives you is so powerful. So I think that's great that you recognize that, because a lot of young people will not.
So you got the earnest money down. You went out and you found investors to give them disproportionate returns or upside for taking the risk on the earnest money. Because normally, I mean, $150,000 at 19, 20 years old, I didn't even know how to count to 150,000. You know what I mean? So like the fact that you could even go get that kind of money, is really, I think, impressive. So getting past that, you have the earnest money. You guys are getting into due diligence. So walk me from due diligence to how much money you had to raise, and walk me through what I think is the most impressive part of the story, raising the capital.
So the raise was $4.5 million, which is a huge number. And
I mean, you're doing deals now that you're raising $4.5 million. So you're
sure.
So and that's a massive number.
And yeah, the point I want to bring up,
to get some perspective to how big that number is.
Yeah. And it's almost as if I knew what I knew now, I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
Like it was my inexperience and my youth that allowed me to take that risk and said, okay, $4.5 million, let's go for it.
Right.
Now I'd be like, wow, that was crazy.
Right.
So I'm very thankful that I took that risk. I'm extremely thankful that it worked out. But yes, it's a crazy risk, and like we discussed, that was one of the first times in my life that I really put myself into a corner. And you're under contract, you're hard.
Yeah. So the earnest money was non-refundable, right? That's the other thing about this deal.
From day one, right?
You put up $150,000 of someone else's money that you personally guaranteed. And if you guys did not buy the deal, the money was lost. Non-refundable means you can't get it back.
That's right.
So did the investor, I'm just putting myself in the investor's shoes. So I got a 21-year-old and sophomore in college, probably not $150,000 to your name at the time, but you're personally guaranteeing the note to me.
Yeah. Well, let's not forget we've got Kent in the house, and so
so more the team, the operation. That's what helped seal that deal. Because I mean, this is a common obstacle, but it's a very important one to talk about, because we talk about it, and that's a lot of money, and you're in a very unique situation where you made it happen. So, what was the key to being able to get that investor to say, hey, you know what? I will trust this, and I'll take a guarantee from you guys.
Yeah. And I think this is true whether we're talking about earnest money deposits or we're talking about LP investors. It's trust. And so this was an investor that knew, liked, and trusted Kent, and then through that trusted me then, right? So that was a connection there. And I'm sure if he really looked at it from a logical perspective and underwrote us and okay, well, let me look at your personal financial statement and this and that. I mean, the numbers wouldn't check out and he wouldn't make that loan essentially. But because there's a relationship, there's trust, that's what gets it done. And I think that isn't just true when you're starting out. It's true no matter where you are. Deals get done over trust. Maybe the element of trust changes because it's no longer based on just kind of like, oh, you're a good guy, but it's also has to do with track record and things like that. So yeah, that's how we were able to actually make that happen.
And then getting into the raise. So you have to raise $4.5 million. So walk me through what's your frame of mind and what are you doing tactically every day? You're going to class, you're coming home. Who are you calling? What's the pitch? I mean, what does that look like to think about raising that kind of money at that age?
Yeah. So it required me to drive through my network. So I just started reaching out to everybody I knew and asking them who they knew, and just asking for referrals, asking to be put in touch. And but prior to this, I was already putting in some work and building relationships with people that do raise money, people that do invest in these deals. So, and that's what I recommend. I mean, obviously family and friends can be a great source of trust, but it's not necessarily the best source of people that actually are real estate investors. So you can you might be missing one or the other, right? You can talk to people that are just real estate investors that you meet off the street, but you're missing trust. Or you can talk to friends and family and there's trust, but they're not necessarily investors. So
you had started early. So you knew this was something you wanted to do. And so you had started raising money and planting those seeds before you even had the deal.
Yeah, we definitely had some intro. I mean, I wish I would have done more, right? It took me actually, I want to say years before I finally brushed off the notions of that marketing and sales were cheesy and bad things. That's the notion I grew up with. All right. So it took me years to brush that off and finally decide, okay, no, this is actually the way that you are successful in business. And I need to have a book. I need to do podcasts. I need to, provide value out there to the world. And that would have helped me get there so much faster. But because I wanted to have my cake and eat it too. I wanted to be the introvert that raised money. How does that work? So thankfully I wasn't so slow to realize this. But anyway, so going through my network, dialing for dollars, and really just taking as many introductions as possible, warm introductions, cold introductions. And
so how many phone calls, I just want to give some perspective to this, to the audience. So how many phone calls a week were you making to raise this money?
No, I have no idea the number of phone calls. All I know is that there were periods of my life that all I did was wake up and dial and have meetings and emails and then go to sleep. So it was just...
So what do you think? 400 phone calls a week? 400 phone calls, emails, like just cold?
Yeah, I would say 25 to 50 a day feels right.
Just general touches.
General touches.
Yeah,
Email,
just trying to get in touch.
LinkedIn, whatever.
Yeah.
No, I think that's great. I mean, I think it's good to add some color to that so people out there understand the amount of effort that had to go into doing this. So you're talking about 25 to 50 calls a day, 5 to 7 days a week for what, 2 months, 3 months?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Now, what about the big R word, rejection? I mean, I've done sales before. You're a young guy raising capital. You're making a name for yourself. You probably got rejected once, twice, maybe 3 times. What was that like? Maybe add a 0 or 2 behind those.
It's such a wonderful experience to go through because it's a form of ego death to go through this because
I like that.
And if you want to hold on to your ego, then don't do this. It's just not going to work. But just picking up the phone, getting rejected over and over again, and actually being told that, oh, your deal is bad over and over again, might actually make you question if your deal is in fact bad. And so that was an interesting experience. And what I want to say about our first deal, and we'll get into the next ones as well, but so thankful that the first one was in fact a great deal. If someone who really was objectively looking at the numbers, they would say, yeah, this deal, jumps off the page. And so that we had that going for us at least, right? So that we could, put this
real substance.
Yeah.
Real substance in the actual asset itself.
We could put this in front of people that understood and they would buy in. Mm-hmm. And if they weren't buying in, it was for reasons outside the deal. So, might as well remove one hurdle from the deal. And so thankfully we did. So, but in terms of rejection.
That's a great point right there. It's just that if you're going to go out there and raise money and have no experience, you better make sure that the asset is a winner and that it stands alone.
Right.
Because everything else is going to be a red flag or yellow flag. And so make sure that you know how to underwrite and have a great deal.
Yeah, do the average deals later. The first one has to be a great one.
Yeah, home run. That's right.
Make your life easier.
But these rejections, oh, this isn't a great deal. That had to make you, that had to cause self-doubt, right?
Yeah, of course.
So what was your process for saying, you know what? No, this guy is wrong. This is a great deal. Like, how did you counterbalance that? Because the rejections are, you get the no's. That's just part of life, part of business, part of dating, part of everything. But you get 20, 30, 40, 100 no's in a row. I mean, it's a blow to the ego.
So I'd love to tell you that, I had this 10-step affirmation that I told myself in the mirror every day, but it's a lot simpler than that. It was just the fact that I had no other choice. I had to push past rejection because I was risking money that I didn't even have and I had to get it done. So that's why I'm thankful for putting myself in that do or die scenario, because you push past your limits and you work a lot. I straight up worked a lot harder in that period of time than I would have otherwise, right? Oh, we think we work hard, but then when you actually really push yourself, you go further. So that was it. And so while I think dialing for dollars is an ineffective way to raise money, you have to build a funnel so that investors come to you. And I also don't think that, taking these sorts of risks is a great idea. I think both of those things were wonderful in terms of teaching me life lessons, shaping me, and building my experience.
And you said a great, I'm going to paraphrase the thing you said last night, I think. You said, rather than, I don't want to be in a position where I'm chasing capital, but capital's coming to me. Can you dissect that?
So obviously we just discussed dialing for dollars, and that's a pretty straightforward strategy. Just get it done, right? And make those intros and put yourself in front of people, and it'll work, right? It's going to work more than just sitting there and doing nothing. But at the end of the day, if you want something that's sustainable and scalable, you have to build a funnel, and an investor funnel is built by, there's many ways, but for me, I think the most valuable way to do it is through content marketing. And so, something like this book has been great because it's brought people like-minded to me. And so the investor that picks up this book and reads it, they spent a quality 2 hours with me by reading this book, and they're aligned in my beliefs, right? They think this way, because if they want to invest just, some other way, then that's the book they'll read, or they won't gravitate to this book. So basically I'm calling out the people that want to align with me and think the way that we think and invest the way that we invest. And now that's just bringing investors to me that I don't have to chase. And I'm not saying the book is the cure-all and, you need to go and write a book tomorrow. There's a lot of things you have to do, and it takes years. Unfortunately, content marketing doesn't happen overnight.
It's the long game.
One of my mentors, this was years ago, I got into sales. Their analogy was, when you think about reaching out to your customer, whether you're selling a $50 product or raising money, you're still reaching out to the customer. When you do content marketing like this, the people who read this, it's like yelling their name in a crowded people. Like if you're in a crowd of people, 100 people in New York City, and I yell, Rob, you and the two other Robs, you turn your head around. And then you're my customers there. It's the same way, like, hey, people will almost self-qualify. And it's like, hey, I like this guy. I like the winner rights. He knows his stuff. I mean, they will self-qualify from that standpoint. So I agree. This content marketing is just a powerful way.
The other thing with podcasts, writing books, blogs, anything like that, social media, is it forces you to really know your stuff. Anytime you're going to talk to other people about it and try and be a thought leader in any space, it really forces you to be an expert in it and to rehearse it, study it, research it, double check everything, verify all the data. And that's one of the things that I've really enjoyed about just, my journey in podcasting and documenting, my journey in multifamily, is that it's forced me to really reinforce the data from every aspect: property management, construction, asset management, underwriting deals. So that's one of the beautiful things. I think you were probably writing this book, you naturally were great with numbers, but writing it probably made you even dive in more to make sure that everything you're putting in print and you're going to document, to everyone else to verify that it was correct, And so I think there's a lot of value in putting yourself out there like that, because it's going to force you to really know the stuff. So we're on your first deal, you're raising $4.5 million. What was the tipping point or the part that the breakthrough during that process to get you across the finish line to get that deal done?
Before we get to that, I think we also want to cover the story that's going to lead really nicely to our big story.
Let's talk about that. Yeah.
So a part of reaching out and dialing for dollars, we've got different kinds of investors. We have the high net worth individuals. Those can be your doctors, lawyers, and people like that who real estate isn't their business. You can also partner with people who more sophisticated family offices that actually set up a business around making these investments into specifically real estate, and different funds like that. So we were reaching out to everybody. it was the doctors, the high net worth guys, the family offices, and the funds. We were trying to find any partner that made sense. And one of the craziest roller coaster stories about the deal was we had a partner. We knew we had a good deal. We just needed the right partner that would that knew the market and that would trust us on the deal. And so when we found this potential investor, they were local in Houston, so they knew the deal. They could wrap their arms around the deal. And like I told you last night, we were so excited because they called us up and said, hey, this is
an institutional investor.
This is an institutional
Which means
investor.
they have a ton of capital looking for investments to place the capital.
They're a real investor.
Yeah.
And they call us, say, hey, we love the deal. We think this is a great opportunity. This is pretty much, we're ready to go. We want you to fly down to Houston and meet with us. It's pretty much a formality, but we'll come, let's tour the property together, and then let's meet in our office. So we did that. We showed them the property shows well. And then we pretty much find ourselves in their conference room with these veteran guys. They know a million times more than we do, and they brought some of their top investors. And then we just proceeded to go through a 2-hour grilling session where we basically were told that we don't know anything and that we're out of towners and that we're not equipped to manage this deal. So
you and Kent just in there just getting undressed, just getting crushed.
A complete, misdirection. I mean, we didn't know what was coming. It's crazy.
You're going in there thinking, man, we're about to close this deal. This institute, this family office, they're going to write us a big check. And you get in this conference room and they're just killing you guys.
Right.
Yeah.
So I get to fly down to Houston. I get to, get a rental car.
And you guys pay for everything.
Of course. We fly down, we pay for a rental car, we get a hotel. And then my favorite part of the story is as we are leaving their offices, we got our parking ticket validated and we pop it into the machine. Turns out we only were validated for an hour, but we were in there getting grilled for 2 hours, so we had to pay for parking as we were leaving.
Just an extra, thank you.
Right.
A pat on the back.
Little salt in the
We want
wound
another
there.
$10 from you.
So, man, that was just such an awesome experience, and I'm so.
Why do you say it's awesome? Because there's that could go either way really quickly, and your mindset says something about why you say it's awesome.
Yeah, and believe me, when that was happening, I was not saying this is awesome, but knowing what I know now, which we'll talk about, I'm so thankful that I played the long game and that I was patient. And one thing I'll never forget that the slightly more junior guy at the firm told me as we were walking out, or maybe he called me after, and he said, I'm sorry that this didn't go the way you wanted, but myself and the founders of the firm are really hoping that you guys call us up in 6 months and tell us you guys are wrong. And look, we told you so. Right? The property is going well. The business plan is going well. We actually can perform. And I could have said, screw you guys. And, you told me one thing or said another, but, it's like, okay, yes, you're right. Sounds good. We went about our business and, knowing that we were in this for the long haul and that something good would come of it later. So that was one of the roller coasters, and, some more roller coasters, but to wrap the raise up, we were able to essentially kind of have some similar experiences and conversations like those where we were grilled, but eventually passed, and maybe we got some smaller chips in the game, like a $500,000 piece, or here and there, $1 million piece, and then able to put the raise together, bring partners onto the team, and finally close it with however much of the pie remaining for us, which we were happy with, right? Because now this is our deal, we own and manage it, and from there this is our springboard. So.
And how long did it take to get that done? $4.5 million.
4 months.
4 months. So you had to extend the contract a couple times because I'm guessing the seller wasn't originally agreeing to 4 months.
That's right.
Right. So you had to have extensions in there, and you had to be pretty flexible on your terms with partnering with other people, because it probably wasn't just like, hey, mom and pop or institutional investor writing you a check and you guys are the only people in the GP. I'm guessing you had to, strategically align yourself with other partners that came into the GP because they brought some capital.
Yeah, we had to make everybody happy.
Yeah. So I think that's a really interesting point, that you guys were focused on getting the deal done and doing what was best for the project, not necessarily thinking about your own, personal stake in it. Okay, so you get that deal done, and how involved were you in the operation after? Or you guys had a property manager? Was there any lessons learned, nuggets that you learned after the deal was closed, or did it pretty much go smoothly on the management side after that?
Oh no, the lessons just kept on going.
Oh yeah.
So, and I don't want to spend too much time, going through everything because it's going to hurt me.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest lesson, and this is such a straightforward one, and it's in my book. I think it's like it earns just one sentence in the book, but nonetheless, it's powerful. It's just the idea of takeover risk. And you know, when you buy a deal and they tell you that it's, you know, 90% occupied, that's at best. And when you take over, all of a sudden the roaches come shooting out and you realize that it's actually more like 85%. Right. There's some,
and 75% of those people are actually paying.
Right. Yeah. The quality of tenants is not as high. And then all of a sudden you've got evictions to deal with. And so takeover risk is not something that we budgeted for and fully appreciated because we just didn't have that experience. And, you know, I'll tell you, moving forward, we absolutely recognize the fact that if we're buying an asset that is not, you know, well stabilized and is of slightly lower quality, we anticipate that dip in occupancy, that takeover risk, and we budget for it, because if it happens, we're prepared. If it doesn't happen, it's gravy.
What's the rule of thumb for like takeover risk? If you're, you know, you're high level, you're doing your you know, your first pass underwriting, what's your default number, percentage? What do you use to like quantify that?
The bigger the vacancy, then the bigger the takeover stress. So for example, if we're taking over at 85, then that's not, that could go either way. But if we're taking over at, you know, 78, you might as well just start at 70. Just assume that you're going to dip down and then you're going to begin your march, hopefully up to 90 plus from 70. So, but it's really hard to, I think, get it right. I mean, because we bought that deal and it was kind of like when we put it under contract, it was maybe 85 and then it was trickling down to 80. And then really before you know it, once we took over, it was down at 70.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, one of the big things, and Rob, you can attest this, is when you're buying a deal, when there's true value add, is that the seller is really not focused on managing it. You know, they already are thinking about the check they're about to receive, the 1031, what they're going to do with the money, the yacht they're going to be on, or, you know, whatever their season of life is. And so the deterioration of maintenance, leasing, the quality of the tenants just goes dramatically down. And so I think, to your point, the heavier the value add, you know, the deeper you're buying it, the worse the property condition is going to be in, both from a physical and a tenant standpoint. And so I think you're articulating that really well. So you get through, I really want to get into this next deal, which is the deal we're going to highlight. And so you close that first deal and you get slapped in the face by a bunch of different people, have a bunch of black eyes, you and Kent. You guys get it done. You get across the finish line. And then one of the cool things that we talked about last night is that in your next deal, which is a deal I think we're going to highlight, 160 units, maybe, 160 units, and it in Houston as well,
right?
$11.5 million. And so walk us through this deal, and let's talk about the underwriting and the capital raise and how this deal is going, because you currently still own this deal.
Yeah,
nice.
So this deal was great, and it speaks to the persistence that you need to actually find good deals. If you want to find a deal, then you can just communicate with brokers, get on their list, and then buy the next marketed opportunity. But if you want to find a really good opportunity, it has to be off market, which, as we know, is really rare and is a nebulous term at best. And so for us, one of the best ways we've been able to find deals is actually by staying persistent and staying on top of stale or burnt out marketed deals. So something that goes to market, nobody buys it, you know, maybe there's some bids, maybe it falls out of contract, but it never goes anywhere. And so our follow-up and just staying on top of those types of deals is one of the best ways that we've been able to actually get into those deals, because you need to be at the right place at the right time when that seller finally goes, okay, I'll sell for less.
Right.
And because it's anyone's deal when that happens. You just have to be there. Mm-hmm. So that's exactly how this deal played out. Seller, I think, wanted 12.5, and that's what caused it not to sell. It wasn't a bad deal. Like, there wasn't roof issues or foundation issues that made it unsellable. It was just seller wanted too much, so it never ended up selling. But we stayed in touch. We just said, hey, what's going on with the deal?
With the broker or the seller directly?
Broker.
Of the broker. Okay, cool.
Yep. And just kept letting them know our interest and that we were still at the table. So then finally, when they came back and said, yeah, I think we're ready to do the deal, you know, we're the natural choice. We're right there. So we actually chased this deal for, I think, over a year.
Nice.
And
those are the best deals.
That's right.
In my experience, those are the best deals. Some of the best deals I've done, I've been working on for 6, 12, 18 months. And the day that they're ready to say yes, it's like, let's go. You know, you've got the plan, you understand it, you got the you know, you probably made some progress on the capital because you've already been thinking about it. I love that story. So you'd been working on it for a year, and then what happened?
And then, I can't say we're, feeling confident after that $4.5 million raise because, like you said, we were beat up from that experience, but we thought that it was doable. So, hey, a $3.5 million raise, let's dive in and do this thing. And so we jump at it excited, and, I'll tell you that this one was even harder.
Wow.
It was even more challenging. And I think the reason being is, I wish I could explain it. I think this is one reason, but I don't think this is everything. I think this deal was not as big of an upside play. The first one, 70% occupied, low rents, kind of seller was ready to be done with it. This deal was, already mostly renovated. It's like, where's the upside? So it was a harder story to sell, I think. So we fell flat on our face, and we only raised, a little over $1 million. And so, here we are thinking, hey, we got this $4.5 million deal done. We're ready to go. And we're just struggling and again, dialing for dollars again. And we're going and asking everybody that we were asking the first time and just not really getting a great response. And it went to the point that it was so difficult that I was ready to give up. I was ready to walk away from our hard money and personally lose.
So your earnest money was non-refundable on this deal as well. And you got it from another investor?
Yeah.
So you had someone else's money there that you personally guaranteed, and it was so frustrating raising money that you were ready to walk away from that. I was just go work to give that guy back his money.
I was ready to accept the consequences and move on to another opportunity because raising capital is a very high value activity, right? It makes the company money, but if you're unsuccessfully raising capital, then you're just wasting your time, and then you're missing out on other opportunities, other deals that you could have been chasing and growing the portfolio. So it's extremely frustrating working backwards. But that's the position we found ourselves in. And funny enough, we had already been again rejected by that group that in Houston that rejected
made
us
you
on the
pay for
first
your
deal.
parking.
Yeah,
You flew down and they made you pay for your parking.
so we had already been rejected by them on this deal. Makes sense. That's fine, right? We're just
because they thought it wasn't enough upside, or what?
Yeah, maybe they were busy with other better
just didn't
deals.
make sense
It
for
just
them.
at the time it didn't make sense. So finally, once I gave up and I said, you know what, I think I'm done with this thing. I called them again and they didn't pick up, and I left a voicemail and I said, hey, we've just talked to everybody on this deal. We know it's a good deal. We're ready to perform, but I don't know what to do. I just can't find the money. I need something around $2 million, and I can't find it. And I left that voicemail.
That was literally the voicemail.
That was the
I mean,
voicemail.
that's not like a power voicemail,
That was not a power. Like, do you want to invest with someone who's saying that? Yeah. So that was my voicemail, right? Maybe he could connect me to some rich uncle or something. But basically I get a call back saying, hey, we looked at the numbers and they do work. And I think we can make this deal happen. And we go, wow, that's exciting. This is it. Maybe this is it. So we go through the hoops again.
Did they ask you to fly down again?
We did not. They said we know we know we did to you last time, so we don't need to do it again. But we did have our regional manager tour them the property that they passed on to show the progress updates, and they're pleased with that outcome. So it's the follow up, and
so they wanted to see the previous deal to see if you guys were actually performing and executing on the business plan.
Yeah, they wanted to see our financials.
That was your due diligence.
Yeah. So they looked at the financials of the deal. They wanted to see the before and after. They wanted to go and see and feel the deal, and another thing I'll never forget is, after passing that test and starting to talk actual numbers on the deal, I remember, the head of the firm, he's got 1 million years of experience, and, he's just such a blessing to talk to, just to learn from him every time he talks. And I remember him saying, and he talks slow, a little bit of a Texas accent, and he said, look, we know the position that you're in on this deal, and I know that I could rip your heart out, and I can really get all of this. I can charge anything I want on this deal, in this partnership, but I'm not going to, because I don't want to do one deal with you guys. I want to do 10, I want to build a relationship. And that really stuck with me, and it showed me the power of, his long-term thinking and the power of relationships in our business, right? Because I've had experiences in this business where someone was acting very short-term, and maybe they won that day, but I know that they're not gonna.
You won't want to do business with them again in the future, right?
Yeah. So basically, where we went full circle from being rejected, staying patient, following up, being humble enough to make the ask, and to closing the deal with someone who is now our favorite partner.
So you were ready to quit. You make this call. The thing I love is the humility, and asking for help. I think that's so underrated. I think sometimes, when you're in any business, you kind of, maybe the media or just society tells you that you have to be overconfident and act like you don't need any help. But I actually think humility goes such a long way, and asking for help, like transparent humility, like sincere humility is invaluable. So they end up writing you the check and you get this deal done when you were so close to walking away, right?
That's right.
Okay. So then now you're in the deal, and let's walk through. So you guys, the purchase price was 11.5. You guys were looks like you were going to put in 1.2 million into rehab.
No, just $500,000.
$500,000 into rehab. Okay. And then the equity, you guys raised 3.5. Is that right?
Yep.
3.4. Okay. So tell me, you had said that a lot of it was rehab. So tell me what the business plan was, where you guys were going to put that money, and then how the property management and the deal kind of played out from there.
So yeah, talking about the business plan, I think it's a maybe slightly less sexy business plan compared to what we're most used to seeing in the value add space, right? Most typically in a value add pitch book, we'll see the current condition of the units. We've got dated flooring, white appliances, tired countertops, and then the after picture, and it's the brand new appliances, the luxury vinyl plank flooring, new countertops. And to an investor's mind, that is such a tangible business plan and such a tangible evidence of value creation. You see the before and after picture, and it's like, oh, this deal makes sense. So I think that's one of the reasons what made this deal harder to sell, but that much better and more unique, because this was not one of those plays, because the units were already in pretty good shape. We were focusing on cleaning up the exterior, amenitizing the property with, doing minor stuff like adding barbecues and picnic tables and making the pool area more attractive, and the stairs, the railings, the siding, just making sure it looked good. Our main focus was leasing up the property. It was around 85% occupied.
And why was it, if it was clean, why did it have 10 to 15% vacancy? Was it just management had owned it, their legacy, they were cash flowing, they had just grown complacent? Yeah,
that's exactly the answer. But think about from the investor's perspective how that's a harder story to buy into.
Right.
Like as an investor, I have to picture how are you out of towners from New York going to get this deal from 80% occupied to 90% plus when this thing's already renovated and it's performing.
Were rents already at market, or were they like below market? Was there upside and just, hey, bumping rents up?
Rents were right around market. Our business plan was twofold. It was to lease up the property and raise rents about $50. So
what was the average like rent when you I don't know the Texas market.
Yeah.
So this is like 1-1s, 2-1s. Like what's the general unit mix?
I don't remember. It is probably, let's say 50% ones, 50% twos.
Okay.
And average rents of $800. We're pushing them to $850.
Okay.
And there's the unit mix. So with that's our business plan. And unlike our first deal, this deal really just worked out like a dream. We take over and we just start marching. 80%, 85%, 90%, 95%, 100%.
No way.
We take
Wow.
this thing. We take this thing to 100% occupied at one point, and we've pushed rents $50, and we did it without even spending that much money. Right? We spent $500,000, which is
nothing.
Nothing for an $11 million deal.
What was your time frame for that turnaround?
8 months.
Nice.
Oh, so your capital partners are loving you.
Yeah, we're surprising ourselves and going, wow. I guess this thing really works.
We need to buy more. We need to buy more.
So that was really exciting to be validated on our business plan.
Right.
To be able to. So this goes back to underwriting, because underwriting is what gave us the confidence to go into that business plan and look at the comps and say, oh yeah, the comps are at these rents, condition of the units are X, and the occupancy of these comps is X. There's no reason why we can't perform to that level.
What was the delta between when you're underwriting and your pro formas versus the actuals? Like how did those, how similar were they, or how different were they? How different were they?
So in the case study here, we actually do compare the underwritten pro forma of like the first year of operations versus what we actually did, and they're pretty much right on top of each other. And then in year 2, COVID hit, and so then our rents went down a little bit, but then our expenses went down a little bit as well. So it's kind of worked out in the end. as far as that period of time. But yeah, I mean, we really stayed on top of our pro forma, and without getting sidetracked too much, I think that's such an important part about marrying your underwriting to your actual business plan and your reporting. You know, every single quarter we benchmark our actual performance to our acquisition underwriting, and that not only keeps us honest with ourselves and our investors, it also makes us underwrite more honestly, because we know in the back of our minds that we're holding ourselves accountable every single quarter to this underwriting. We can't just underwrite, buy the deal, and then forget about it.
How in depth were you personally going into, because I know underwriting is one of your strengths. So how in depth, from New York, were you getting in underwriting the leases, comparing different properties in that area, or were you leaving that up to the property manager, or how involved did you get in that?
So we were there in the neighborhood. We were walking all the neighborhood.
You personally did that?
Personally,
Yeah,
going
cool.
into I show up to competitors.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm looking for a 2-bed. Can I take a look? Show me the model, and just seeing the exterior, seeing the interiors. What do they have? What do they don't have? On this deal in particular, what we identified was that our units were fine. They were in good shape, but they lacked a little bit of pop compared to the competition, and most specifically, all it really was the backsplash in the kitchen. Mm-hmm. So in our business plan, we went through, and it didn't matter if the unit was occupied or vacant. We just went in and just threw up a backsplash into every single unit, and we got that done. I don't know. It was quick. It was maybe 6 months, and to us, we felt that was enough to justify the additional pop in rent and stay competitive with the market, because we identified
that was the trigger. Was just adding the backsplash was a big reason for the rent bump. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, or at least it allowed us to justify it, and because it's you never, not never, but you don't want to raise rents without giving anything,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
As you guys know, so as long as you're adding value to the property and doing something, so tenants can see that we're cleaning up the exterior, adding value, careful, concerned management, and so they feel that value is being given to the property, so then rents can go up.
I think that's
slightly.
one of the really amazing things about multifamily is that sometimes the littlest thing makes a ton of impact. Just cleaning up the exterior, spending a little bit more time on landscaping, the pool area, maybe the walkway, the entryway, the entrance, kitchen, a light fixture, just brightening up kitchens, adding something that makes it pop, like a backsplash. Like, you can spend very little money but get a ton of impact from it. Is one of the things that I love about this business, is that you can spend $300, $400, $500 and get 50 a month. 50 a month times 12 months is, I think, $600. I'm not great at math. Rob, you're much better than me. But I mean, you're going to spend $600 a year to get $500, and obviously every $100 in rent in the Denver market's worth a month is worth about $20,000 in value on the back end at a 5.5 cap. So I think that's one of the most amazing things, is you can spend, if you're intentional and you know what you're doing, you can spend very little money but get a ton of value on the back end by taking care of the property and adding a little bit of pop to units, like you did in the kitchen, light fixtures, so the entryways, the entrances, the light, or the pool, I think you said. So I think that's one of my favorite things about multifamily.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I'm sure so many investors pass on this deal for a couple of reasons. One thing is, this deal wasn't your deep value add opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
yet it wasn't stabilized. So it didn't qualify for agency financing. You had to buy it with bridge. So it was kind of like in no man's land a little bit, where it wasn't a fit for like the true value add bridge loan investors, but it wasn't a fit for the stabilized long-term cash flow investors. So that weeded out a lot of the buyer pool. And then the other thing too is, I'm sure a lot of buyers looked at it and said, oh, it's already renovated, there's nothing I can do here. And then other buyers, maybe they thought they could renovate, but they were thinking, oh, I'm going to spend $5,000 per unit to maybe get $50 or $100 a month on the rent.
Mm-hmm.
But we were able to do that with, far less spend.
Much less. Yeah, I love that approach, because, we look at the same thing, and that is, one of the things we like to talk about is everyone has buckets. So like institutions have buckets and different buyer pools, and depending on their level of sophistication, especially in this price point and demographic, it's, they have buckets. And what I like to say that we do is we buy in between the buckets. Everything that falls in between the buckets, that's where I play, the space that we play in, and we excel. And that's exactly what you just said, is it didn't quite fit the value add bucket, and it didn't quite fill the passive, like, turnkey bucket. And so there you are with Kent and your ability to be flexible, to be creative and say, you know what, this is something where it perfectly fits our bucket, where we can add slight improvement and really excel in the management and get an incredible return, a disproportionate return for our investors. So you touched on something about bridge debt. So it wouldn't qualify for agency debt. And so walk me through the bridge debt and how that was different from agency, and then how that ended up playing out with the property.
Yeah, so for those that are less familiar, agency debt is loans that originate by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and they're most typically 10-year loans, non-recourse, and it's only for properties that have stabilized performance, which is most classically 90% occupancy for 90 days plus. Mm-hmm. So this deal, like we discussed, was around 85% occupancy, so that clearly doesn't fit. So that pushes it into the bridge loan category. Bridge loans are for all the deals that are not agency. And even if they do qualify for agency, some buyers still even go for bridge because they want additional leverage or more flexibility. Mm-hmm. So with us, we had to, get more creative and find the right lender for this deal that would, buy into our business plan. Because on the bridge loan side, a lender isn't simply underwriting the in-place cash flows to derive their loan structure or their loan proceeds. They're actually underwriting the pro forma. Whereas on the agency side, they are strictly tied to only underwriting to in-place cash flow. Mm-hmm. So on the bridge loan side, you actually have to sell the lender just like you would an investor on the upside. And so we had to do that and find the right bridge lender that believed in our business plan, that we could push the rents so that way we could, get the loan that we needed and close.
And what were those terms like for the bridge loan?
So bridge loans are typically a 3-year term, right, rather than a 10-year term. And the leverage is about 80% loan to cost. And the interest rate back then, higher than today for sure, it was around 5.5%, 6%.
So you were still the cash flow at that?
Yeah.
And was it interest only or?
Yeah, full term interest only.
Oh, full term IO. So you did have some cash flow then.
Yeah, so bridge loans are almost always IO.
IO, nice. Okay, so then walk me through. So you guys get the bridge loan. You guys start doing these minor renovations. You guys get to 100% occupancy, and then what? Do you guys sell, refinance, or how'd the deal go from there?
So really our goal was, obviously we were carrying this expensive bridge loan, and our goal was to get out of it as quickly as possible. So for us, the refi was the best course of action. And in order to refi, right, you need to get the property to that stabilized point, 90% occupancy for 90 days. And so we wanted to prove out the value so that we could come in and get a new loan from an agency lender this time at a higher valuation and actually cash out some equity, take risk off the table, and cut our interest expense, because we had the benefit of rates going down over that period of time too. So we were almost literally cutting our interest expense in half.
Wow.
So we were going to cash flow. Oh, I don't want to misspeak, but I want to say like almost the preferred return out of just the interest reduction.
Wow.
So that was a great opportunity. So
say that again and explain to the audience, because that's you said it very quickly. Like,
yeah.
What does that mean exactly?
So yeah, I did say a lot. So the preferred return in a deal structure is the minimum return hurdle owed to investors before any secondary split or performance compensation can kick in.
And that's usually for you, the GP, right?
That's right. So for us, our deals, we typically give investors an 8% cumulative compounding preferred return. So that's their minimum return that they need to get before we see any of the upside ourselves. So what I said about, cutting our interest expense in half, that was putting an extra, $20,000 or so in our pocket every single month from just going from a higher interest rate bridge loan to a lower interest rate permanent loan. And just that savings right there is able to give investors that 8% every single month. So that had huge implications on our cash flow. Yeah. So,
but you can't model that out when you're pro forma. That's just like, hey, the market went your way, and that's
right.
Hey, it went your direction that time.
Yeah, no, I remember we underwrote this deal to a 6.5 cap exit, and today the lender valued it at a 5.5 cap.
Wow.
So you bought it. Yeah. So let's talk about that. You bought it $11.5 million. You put in $500,000, right? So you're in at a $12 million basis. And what did it appraise for?
14.7.
14.7. And it did that in 24 months?
Less
Less than 24 months. Wow. So the investor that took a chance on you, the capital partner, they're happy, everybody's happy, you guys are cash flowing, and you guys still have this in your portfolio?
Yep. We're making distributions, and we're enjoying that low interest rate long-term loan.
Right.
And it's not to get too complicated, but it's a floating rate Freddie Mac loan. So we have prepayment flexibility. So if we get a great offer in a year, we can sell and
without a big hit.
Without a hit, yeah.
Nice. So as we, I think we've covered a lot of great ground and offered, I think, a ton of golden nuggets here to the audience. We want to end with, this is the Tribe of Multifamily Mentors show. And so we really want to highlight mentors. So why don't you talk about maybe some of the key mentors in your life and specifically multifamily investing career that have really added value to you?
So getting started into multifamily, as we discussed on the live Q&A, I had the very great fortune of being able to hire Joe Fairless as a mentor, which really supercharged my ability to grow my network. Mm-hmm. He was, through that mentorship process, we're able to essentially, buy these friendships, buy these relationships, and as long as you're willing to put in the work and take advantage and jump on all these boring intro calls and Zoom calls now these days, you can really make the most of that value. So that's exactly what I did. I made it a point. I mean, anyone that came into my sphere through kind of that Joe Fairless network, I was going to reach out to them. I was going to schedule a call. Yeah. By the way, I hate just purposeless networking.
Yes.
I cannot stand it, because when someone reaches out to me on LinkedIn or Instagram and just says, hey, would love to connect or something, or love your story or whatever, there's nothing for me to do there. There's no action. So I'd much rather someone to reach out and say, hey, I'm working on X, Y, and Z, and I need help with this one thing, or this is on my mind. You would be surprised at the complex questions I get. And I will answer them, and I will go in. But if someone just says, hey, what's your story? I just can't answer that.
So, and this is a great point here, because I totally agree. I think, Terrence, you probably would. You get I got a text message yesterday. It's like, hey, I'm looking for a one-on-one mentor. I don't want to reply to that text message. But if someone gives a specific question and you can say, hey, they're doing their homework, they've got this, they've thought about it, and they're debating between option one and option two. Hey, do I do a floating rate or a fixed rate? What do I do here? It's easier to help that person and more enjoyable too.
If there's a specific ask, right?
Yeah.
If they're intentional about it.
Also, people don't appreciate what they don't pay for. So if you get a free mentor, you'll learn. But if you pay for that mentor, all of a sudden you're just locked in, and
right.
you're
trying to make the most of it.
Trying to make the most of that time. So that was the big mentor to get started. And then I want to shout out some of my current mentors that have recently come into my life and have been just an amazing inspiration. And those people are Bobby Castro, Albert Preciado, and Mo Yunez. And so I was able to meet all three of them in one single weekend in Miami about a month and a half ago.
And this was the first time you met them, or you developed a relationship over LinkedIn and phone calls?
Yeah. So, Bobby and I had connected on LinkedIn, and, I get 50 views on my YouTube videos, but somehow out of that 50, one of them was Bobby Castro. And, this is a guy that's a true inspiration. He's a crazy go-getter, self-made story, sold his business for $1 billion all along the way, built a $400 million multifamily portfolio. And he reached out to me to help him put on an event where he was going to, teach some people open up the secrets to his business and how he built his wealth. And oh, by the way, the ticket to go to this event was $15,000. So, everyone showing up was a heavy hitter. And that's where I met those other people and was able to kind of continue those relationships and take advantage and make the most of those opportunities to network. And so being around these high-level successful guys, it scrambled my brain. I could feel the way I was thinking changing. And that is something that you cannot get from reading a book. You cannot get from all the information's free on the internet, but you can't get that without actually, being with someone who's thinking on that level, talking numbers that are outside of your paradigm. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh, that's cute. You're talking about 100,000, 200,000, million, right? It's like, this is what we're talking about. So that's been really powerful for me.
Yeah, just expand your perspective and your horizon. Yeah, I think that's what having the right mentors is about. And I think one of the other great things is, as you reach different levels of success and different seasons in your career, you're going to have new mentors, new people that you're attracted to. They're like, man, this is the person that's going to help me get to that next level. And so I think that's right on. And I love that, Joe helped you start out and your father. And then now you're like, man, there's these 2 or 3 other guys and they're helping me take my game and my, my mindset and, my discipline and all those things to a whole nother level. So the last question that I have for you and something we like to ask our guest is, everyone has a superpower. What is the 1 or 2 things that you think separate you that make you, special, unique, and have really gotten you to where you're at?
I think if you zoom out and you kind of take what's the overarching theme in terms of skill set or passions of mine, and it's taking the complex and making it simple. So that goes to underwriting, right? Underwriting, people think it's so complex. Well, I wrote a 100-page book on it that anyone can pick up and learn how to underwrite. And when you're talking about complex investments, being able to break it down and explain it simply to an investor, that's what sells. That's what gets them excited about the deal. So I think I've always been a teacher all along in my life, and I love to teach. And so I think that's a big superpower of mine.
I've been really impressed with your ability to articulate just the capital structure stack, the financing of multifamily, the deals that you're doing at the level you're doing them at. That's not an easy thing. And I've been really, really impressed with your ability to communicate that at a very entry level, for people anywhere to be able to digest that. So I definitely would agree with that being your superpower. So, one of the things we want to do is, really highlight you and, how can people reach out to you? How can they get to know you? Where can they find out about, future deals that you're doing? Because I think, you've got a lot of deals in the pipeline, you're raising capital. How can people get in touch with you? They're like, man, I really want to spend more time with Rob and understand if there's a way for me to work with him.
Yeah, so the best way to learn more about myself and what we're doing at Lone Star is on our website, lscre.com. So on our website, you can actually download for free the underwriting model that we use every day to underwrite deals. It complements the book very well. You can use them together separately. And also on our website, we have an investor form. So if you want to, let us get to know you and you get to know us and see if our deals are a good fit, that's the best place for us to get in touch.
So Rob, thank you so much, man. This has been great.
Yeah, thanks for being here, man. That was awesome.
I had a great time. Thanks so much.
You're listening to the Multifamily Mentor Show.
Join the conversation.